Hey, Miss Nikki Brown here, no matter where you are and no matter what part of the world you are in. I hope that you are having a great day. So, today I wanted to talk about people who are abusive or in abusive relationships and they don't even realize it, right? One of the things that abusers will do is love bomb you, right? They can put you up on a pedestal, make you feel special, and this is not just about romantic relationships. This can be family, this can be friends, this can be co-workers, um, leadership. Anyone can do this. Usually, this person probably has a lot of narcissistic tendencies or traits and they don't realize it. And so that once they become an abuser, the person that they're abusing doesn't realize it, because they'll give the person a gift or give the person a compliment, and then in the same sentence or in the next sentence they will belittle them or complain, or just say something to lower their self-esteem. There was a scene in a movie, and if I'm not mistaken, it was Belly, right? Where this chick comes into the bar, and he's standing at the bar talking to his friend, and he tries to talk to this chick, and she's not interested. So he's like, screw you, you ain't all of that anyway, type of thing. And so she immediately turns around and she's like, why, what do you mean I'm not all of that? Why would you say that? Because now he's lowered her self-esteem and made her doubt herself. So now she feels the need to prove herself. And this is what happens. And this is what happens to what they call Stockholm syndrome, where the person who's being abused starts to defend their abuser. Right? Because it's like, oh, that's not such a bad person. I know KRS-One says there are three types of people. And he describes someone who he like goes from slavery, asking three questions, to modern times asking three questions. And you can Google it, it's on YouTube. And it was in the Hidden Colors movie, the first one. And it's like, why do you work? First he starts by asking slaves, but then he brings it to modern day. Why do you work for FedEx? And it's like, what do you mean, why do I work for FedEx? I need a job. And it's like, ask the next person, why do you work for FedEx? Well, they pay me okay, the benefits are decent, and I make a pretty good living off of it. And then it's like you ask the third person, and the third person's like, I don't really work here, I'm really a rapper, and da 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 da. Like, this person is ambitious. They don't attach themselves to the job. They actually detach, and they look at themselves from outside of that situation as opposed to inside of that situation. And this is the basic mentality of a lot of people. You have those who are more ambitious and like more of leaders, whether it's self-directed leaders, or like or like in a leadership role, I guess I want to say. And you have those as like, oh, I gotta do what I gotta do. And then you have those as like, oh, well, master's not so bad, right? The boss is not so bad. The husband or the wife is not so bad. The relative is not so bad. They made me a pie yesterday. So although they cuss me out all the time and call me names, they're not so bad because they made me a pie, right? And so you have these ebbs and flows. The person will, again, love bomb, give compliments, give gifts, and then, cuss somebody out or belittle them. And it kind of goes back and forth like that, and it's really toxic, right? This is a type of toxic relationship. So these are some notes that I took in my phone. Basically, someone will love bomb you, then belittle you and expect you to be okay with it. Right? They don't want you to say anything about them, having uh, criticized you. You're just supposed to accept it. Especially the generation before mine, they accepted it. I'll say even the two generations before mine, they accepted it. They grew up in that generation. You don't talk back. If you talk back, somebody's gonna slap you or knock you down. And so they kind of passed that down. But now the generation that has come after me, they're not trying to hear that. They're more ambitious too. I was talking to one of my coworkers today, and she said that her son, his sophomore or junior year in college, applied for a job making over $100,000 a year that he wasn't qualified for. And he was like, well, I'm going after what I want. And he actually ended up getting a second interview. Now, he didn't make it past the third interview, but if the company had stopped at a second interview, he could have potentially been hired because he made it to the second interview, right? And it's funny because I saw a meme the other day, and I thought I saved it, and I may have, but I don't know what I did with it. But anyway, it was like applying for a job you don't qualify for, and it showed a guy just kind of standing in front of this in a gosh, I can't think of the name of it right now, but in like a networking room, I'm gonna say, and just like standing there staring at it because he didn't know what to do, but he got the job, right? And a lot of people lie on that resume, and a lot of times people who, like even with the puppy situation, people that do grimy things, sometimes they get ahead, but at some point in time, what goes up must come down. Because you can't continue to live that way and not at some point get some type of repercussions, right? And if the karma doesn't come back to you, it's going to come back to your children or your grandchildren, right? But it's going to come back around because the universe has laws. Whether people choose to believe that or not, whether you call it karma, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, God don't like ugly, no matter how you say it, right? The universe has laws. And one of those laws is the law of cause and effect. And so if there isn't a cause, there will be an effect, right? Whether it's good karma or not so good karma, it's going to come back around. So, okay, once somebody is belittled, sometimes the person feels the need to defend themselves or protect themselves, especially if it's in a job situation. I experienced this in my previous role where they would intentionally send people to try to sabotage or provoke me, and it didn't work, right? And so, because I never knew who they were going to send to me and what I was going to have to do, it was like I was always on defense or in defense mode, because that made me feel like I needed to defend and protect myself, because leadership or upper management was not doing that. They were the ones sending people to me thinking that I would be foolish enough to be provoked or sabotaged, not realizing that that doesn't work for everybody. There are some people who are out here playing chess and not checkers. Right? Not everybody's foolish enough to fall for these silly games. There are some very mature people. And you can't just play mind games with them like that. They see it coming a mile away. And if anything, one of the things that happens is, the ones who are going to go back and repeat what you said. So you give them something, you feed them something to go back and say. Then that pisses them off even more. But when you put people, if you back somebody into a corner, if you back a dog into a corner, they're going to attack, right? Whether it's a verbal attack, a mental and emotional attack, people are going to defend and protect themselves by any means necessary. So again, if you send somebody to me, I'm going to give you something to take that person something to take back to you. And people don't realize that sometimes the things that they do are so foolish. Right? They'll even hire people, to be your friend just so that they can ask you questions and try to pick you for information. Here you go. Here's these breadcrumbs. I'll give you that. Go ahead and take that back. Run tell that now. So if somebody feels like they're backed into a corner and they need to defend and protect themselves, if it's a relationship, a romantic relationship, and these people have children, it could affect the children. It could affect how he or she shows up in the household. It could affect someone's performance at work, right? Because again, if you put somebody in a position where they have to constantly be on guard and defend or protect themselves, how can they perform to the best of their ability when they feel like they're constantly under attack and they never know what's going to happen or which direction is going to come from? So you put people in situations, again, it affects performance. So this is a very aggressive, passive aggressive way to show up as a leader, whether it be the leader of a household, the leader of a department, the leader of the family, right? This is very toxic. But because generations before have done it this way and it worked, because those people were willing to bow down and just accept it, this generation now, my generation and younger, we're not so willing to accept some of this stuff. We see the abuse and we choose to go no contact. We choose to distance ourselves. We don't look at the title. We don't look at the relationship. We look at how we're being treated. A lot of times the first thing people will say is, well, the Bible says, honor thy mother and thy father. But the Bible immediately says after that, but parents do not provoke your children to anger. Again, that applies to romantic relationships and business relationships, right? And family too, right? You don't have to allow a relative to walk all over you and mentally, emotionally, and verbally abuse you just because of the relationship you have with that person, right? It's toxic. And how can you heal and become a better person if you're constantly under attack, right? Is it easy? No, it's not easy to go no contact. And it takes a while to get to that place where you're okay with it. I know that one of the things that helped me go no contact and distance myself was Dr. Ramani, right? Dr. Ramani was, because I was kind of debating with myself, like, okay, do I just spend this time, a year, maybe healing and then go back? And I'm like, why am I going to place myself back in the lion's den? You know that if you go into the lion's den, the lion is going to attack you. Even with a work situation, it's like, oh, well, maybe I'll go back, to this work environment. But if you go back into that work environment, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be worse than it was before you left, right? So sometimes it's best to just stay away. Even with a romantic partner, if you decide to break up or get a divorce, sometimes it's best to stay away. An ex is an ex for a reason. And sometimes, because of the attachment, because of the years, and it takes a while to emotionally separate yourself. I was watching a video yesterday, and basically there's like a soul tie. And a lot of people are now familiar with that term. In the video, they didn't say soul tie, but I'm going to say soul tie for the sake of this video, just so that I don't get too complicated. You basically have a soul tie with someone once you sleep with them. And that soul tie basically lasts for 12 years, right? So then if you're with multiple people, you have multiple soul ties. So even if you just slept with that person last year, you still have 11 years before you really get this person out of your system. Spiritually speaking, this is from a spiritual perspective. And you can do all the cleansing, you can do your meditating, you can pray, whatever it is that you do, cleanse, and maybe physically you've kind of cleansed, but still spiritually there's an attachment there. And that's why sometimes you'll be sitting and doing absolutely nothing, and all of a sudden you start thinking about that person, because 9 times out of 10 that person is thinking about you. And so, because there's still that connection there. And so spiritually, on a spiritual level, you can still pick up on what that person is thinking. And then again, if it's multiple people, you take on those attitudes. So then if you separate from somebody and you try to be in a relationship with someone else, that's why sometimes it doesn't work, because you still have a bunch of other attachments that are connected to you. Even if it's the right person, even if it's the right time, it's a bit more challenging to maintain that relationship because, again, of the other attachments that you have. And they say the average relationship lasts about 12 years. Because if you can make it that long, you've gone past a milestone. But make it that long without having any other relationships or attachments. That's why, one of the reasons why two people get together and they're both virgins, the likelihood of them staying together increases. Not that they won't have challenges, because everybody can have challenges in their relationship. But again, they have a special bond and a special connection. And this is one of the reasons why it is advised that people become, stay virgins until they get married. But in the society that we live in, we are very hypersexual. And so, with peer pressure, the media, this is not as easy for people to do or maintain. And so they succumb to, society. And it is pretty unfortunate, because this is what, they want. They don't want those strong family bonds and strong connections where people stay together, for a lifetime. They want people to have dysfunctional relationships and disconnections. And breakups and heartaches. So now you're in this depressed, pity party, woe is me energy. And then that's projected out into the world. Because we're one, whether we realize that or not. I like the way Russell Simmons described it. And I know I've said this before. He said, if you take a cup and dip it in the ocean, you're a cup of God. So each individual is a cup of the one, of the source, right? And so the feelings of the collective, the feelings of the majority get projected out into the universe. And so that's why they give us all these love stories, these fantasy fairy tale movies, and they make us think that this is the reality that we can have. This is why they give us the idea of the American dream, right? But what is that really, when that's not the way our ancient ancestors truly existed? And when I talk about our ancient ancestors, they say, well, that's not realistic for today's time, but it can be. Right? It can be if we implement some of those ways, thoughts, and actions. Because we are natural beings. We're supposed to live as natural beings. Well, we've been very far removed from that, right? We go to schools and, think that degrees and titles make us better than other people, or the type of car that we have, or the house that we live in. And then we put everything on a timeline when there's really no such thing as time. Right? And we judge other people based on what we feel like we've accomplished, these degrees. And this is coming from someone who has 2 degrees. So this is not me picking on anybody. This is me speaking the truth. Right? This is the truth of what society has become. Right? There was a time where we walked around nude because the body was not sexualized and it was not a source of shame. Right? The breasts were seen as a source to feed children, just like any other animal. Just like other animals now still are in their natural state. They don't have clothes on. You don't see birds with clothes on. The hips, the woman's hips were seen as, good enough for for carrying a child. They were not sexualized. It wasn't until the European came and then someone like Sarah Bartman was sexualized and put into a zoo and allowed, men were allowed to touch all over her and do whatever they wanted to do to her, to the point where she was like 20 something years old and she died of a venereal disease. And even Dr. Joy DeGruy said, because for the most part the native or aboriginal woman had bigger butts than their women. It was like, oh well, she must like sex. And so to this very day, we are still sexualized, and we're hypersexual society at this point, far beyond what they talk about as Sodom and Gomorrah. It's far beyond that. And when I say this to people don't, well, I need sex. This is the first thing some people say. And they think that it's okay to say that, which it is to a certain extent, if that's what you want, but not realizing that it's more to it than that, that's the problem. That's where it becomes problematic. The lusting part of it, right? And the lack of spiritual connection. And again, if this person has had sex with multiple partners within that 12-year time frame, they're not realizing once they have sex with this new person and they're over it, they can easily get bored and then want to move on to another partner, because the sex is not going to satisfy. No matter how much sex this person has with them, it's something deeper that they need satisfaction from, and they're not seeking that. And so if you're not seeking the right thing, you're just going to constantly be looking for that excitement, that chemistry, that connection that they tell us in the movies and on TV we're supposed to have, when that's not really what life is about at all. Not in the grand scheme of things. That is not what we're supposed to focus on. We're supposed to focus on a partner that we can get along with and build with. You cannot build with somebody strictly based on your attraction and whether or not you have sex all the time. Because if you're having sex all the time, what is it that you're building? How can you build? Where is this connection going? It's just, and again, this is not me criticizing somebody, and everybody's wants are different. So some people want a very simple life. So, for some people, they just want to go to work, have their house, their simple car, go to the liquor store, go to the weed man, pay the rent, and do it all over again. Some people want a little bit more than that. But again, is this really building? What are you building? What are you leaving to your children? What's that foundation like? What are you teaching them? What are you instilling in them? What morals, values, or sensibilities are you passing down to them? What legacy are you passing down to your children? Right? Especially, again, if you're that type of person who's the mean girl or the mean guy and you're being petty, spiteful, and vindictive because you can't get your way. And then you're, lashing out at other people and making it seem like it's their fault that you're unhappy and miserable in your life because you're not working toward what you're supposed to work toward. Whatever that may be for each individual, because we all have a calling. Everyone has a calling, but some people just never answer the phone, and that phone just keeps ringing. They keep getting hints, they keep getting triggers, and they just continue to ignore the phone. Right? A lot of people, they're supposed to do something in this lifetime. That something could be apologize to somebody that you did wrong. That person could be help somebody that you criticized and look down on. That could be donating, something or some finances to someone who's in not such a good position in life at this moment. It could be fixing relationships with people who you had a fault, a toxic situation with, whatever that looks like. But everybody's calling is different, and you know what it is, though. You know what keeps popping up in your mind that you're supposed to do that you're ignoring. And you know that doing that one thing could completely change your life for the better. But most people are stubborn and they're not going to do it. And most people are selfish and they just want what they want. Right? You don't want what's best for somebody else, because then they won't be around you as much, or they won't talk to you as much. So you would rather them stay in a low place just so that you can have the satisfaction that you want, and not wanting better for that person. And that's very selfish, to want somebody to stay in a low place for your own satisfaction. But this is one of the reasons why your life is not going the way that you want it to go. This is one of the reasons why you're miserable or unhappy, when you feel like you have all these things, a house full of things, a garage full of things, a whole bunch of friends or people around you, yet you're still unhappy. It's just things still aren't quite right, because you aren't quite right within. And until you go within, there's an African proverb. It says, the goal in life is to find your gift. And something like that. And the mission in life is to give it away. Like, once you find your gift, you're supposed to give it away. So whatever you're good at, you're supposed to share those things or give them away, not use them over somebody's head or be spiteful and vindictive. You're not supposed to hold on to it, because that's selfish. And we have become a selfish society, and we don't realize it. We have normalized the things that we do that are not okay. And again, it shows up as mental, emotional, verbal, physical, financial abuse. And people don't like that word abuse. And they don't like to be accountable and responsible for the abuse that they're projecting onto other people. They throw the rock, hide their hand, and then become a victim. Oh, well, why do I have to be the villain? Because you're not doing the right thing. So if that word abuser bothers you, what are you going to do to fix it? What are you going to do to change it? What are you going to do to be a better person? That is what I have to offer you. That is my challenge to you. And of course, you can do whatever you want to do. You can stay the same. That's up to you, but you will get that karma back, whether you believe in karma or not. As always, I love y'all. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe. And as always, mwah, 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 mwah. I love y'all. Mwah.